Well, the bye week in Blacksburg is anything but quiet with another player hitting the portal. The coaching search heating up, new layers and elements to that every day. And the staff's just trying to keep everything together, obviously, at this point in the season. As we welcome you back in to another edition of Kolby's Corner Live here on Wednesday, October 15th, ahead of fall break, ahead of, obviously, the bye week. A little earlier time slot tonight. I appreciate everyone jumping in here. If you have questions, make sure to dump them in the live chat. Be a little bit of a shorter show, but I mean, just thank you guys so much for all the support to the show. Make sure to like, subscribe, drop questions in the chat, share the show with a friend. It's been a ton of fun getting this rolling, obviously with the coaching search heating up and making this a little bit more in demand, but it's been a ton of fun. Touch on some things today, talking about Christian Ellis, obviously entering the portal, the culture around this team right now, even with the interim head coach, Montgomery's bye week updates, and then obviously the coaching search and some different things. And we'll touch on some questions. But with that, like I said, just thank you guys. Make sure to share the show with a friend, and we'll just jump right into it. First off, obviously, the news of yesterday, New Mexico transfer safety Christian Ellis enters the transfer portal, appeared in 4 games, obviously had that really, really big play against NC State at the end of the game with that big pass breakup. And then, crazy that eventually that will be his last play ever in a Virginia Tech uniform, was that play. Post-game after that, talking to Christian Ellis in the draws of Carter Finley Stadium, it was like, well, was, sitting out that Wofford game good to get your health back or your feet back under you in a way? And he sort of just looked at it like, what? Oh, yeah, getting back healthy. So obviously, to talk to Monty today again at the bye week and talking about, obviously, these guys are still making business decisions and different things are still coming up, and those conversations can come up. I don't think there's any animosity or different things. And I know at this point, and now the window's closed and safety coming into the year, that's why you go out and you acquire 4 safeties in the transfer portal. And I know people were like, well, this isn't exactly how you stack a roster. And now you look at it, you're playing at some point in the game, true freshman Peanut Johnson and true freshman Sheldon Robinson, because you've had Quentin Reddish get hurt, have a procedure, and he's going to be out for at least some time. You've obviously had different guys get banged up and dinged up. Sherrod Koval still injured. You've obviously, Tyson Flowers has still been back there, but I'm rotating Isaiah Cash around. It's just been a revolving door. Jordan Bass just rotated to play safety back there. So the secondary has been dinged up and not what you want to do, especially right when you see a big splash play from Ellis, who's been a really, really solid safety back there. But I think so now it's him. Love it. Obviously, Brown's down for the year. This just increases the impact on the secondary and the depth for being reliant on freshmen of Sheldon Robinson, of Brennan Johnson, of JoJo Krim, Jamari DeLoach, those guys in the secondary. And a lot of that, it's pretty prevalent, obviously, or prudent coming into the bye week when usually, these guys are running scout team, but just at this point in the year, these guys are going to have been taking reps with the one. So it's how does Montgomery sort of frame the bye week and, try and get everyone back healthy, tying back into, obviously they had 21 guys unavailable for last week's game against Georgia Tech, which was by far the most in the ACC, really banged up. So the bye week always comes at a good time, but really, really banged up squad. And then when you're, leaking guys out to the portal, it's not always great. And I know I touched on it a little bit last show about not only the portal, but just this era of college football and how obviously a very, very common theme amongst fans, amongst viewers, is how just mercenary and how these players can sort of travel back and forth. And I know I shared the anecdote about Marcellus Hawkins at Georgia Tech. There are stories like that, like Marcellus Hawkins. There's different things, and it's a decision for everyone. It puts them in a tough spot. I don't think players hold ill will against them. I think everyone's really just trying to get theirs. Like obviously Tucker Holloway, everyone enters for different reasons, and it's just a very odd situation. I thought Tyson Flowers gave a really, really great post-practice interview. We had a great interview with him over the summer over on the YouTube channel to check it out, but I thought he gave some pretty great perspective just overall on how he walks in his faith. He was at Rice last year and his coach got fired, so obviously not only trying to lift up the younger people in his room, but also just he's been through this. So yeah, it's been a little bit of an odd year, but just trying to keep everyone engaged and involved. Some other, I guess, just midweek updates. Montgomery talked about obviously getting the offensive line back healthy. There's no hiding that a big issue with the team this year has been the offense, and a big part of the offense not being able to operate effectively has been the offensive line woes, giving up a lot of pressures. I know it's been patchwork. Obviously, there's been injuries. Brody Meadows got hurt before the year even started. He's not going to see any game time. Jaden Muskrat's been dinged up. Obviously, Montavious Cunningham's been hurt. Johnny Garrett's been in and out, banged up, having to move guys like Lath Gannon, having to move Tomas Rimac all around. Kyle Altuner's kind of been that dog there at center, but he's a redshirt freshman. So everyone's trying to learn and figure it out as they go. And you're facing the number 13 ranked team in the country. So kind of getting thrown out to the Wolves. You think about a guy like Aiden Lynch also just getting thrown out there to the Wolves. But just trying to get them back healthy. So obviously this is a really great opportunity for that. You can't lose on the bye week, although over on vtscoop.com, it sort of almost sounds like you can. But just getting those guys back rolling and healthy. And I mean, it's really, when you just want to look at the workings of the spot for the game, Cal plays UNC this week. Virginia Tech is off, and then they have to travel across the country to come back and play on a Friday. So just matchup dynamics of the game really, really playing into Virginia Tech's favor. But that's just a couple different things. Obviously, talking about the red shirt, I know Evan's been running the red shirt tracker over on the site. At this point, you have to play the guys you have. When you're so limited on the roster with who's available, you just have to go roll out those guys. I wouldn't imagine red shirts being an issue. A lot are going to get burned, but you're going to see a lot of true freshman guys playing just because out of necessity. It's what you have to do. Some different notes, obviously talking about Cal Prep. Just very, very early on, Philip obviously talked about JKS, their true freshman quarterback who can throw it all around the yard. Excited to have the Friday night game. Some different things of the bye week, good on good, but a lot of those guys have already been playing. Just said it's a good time to sort of slow things down because not only has it been physically challenging, as you've seen by the injuries, it's been a tumultuous year with overturn from the top down, obviously losing your head coach 3 games in. Said it came at a really good time for the players. Then just moving right along, I guess just we'll keep you updated on injuries and different things as we move forward in the week. But lastly, I think just before we get into questions and wrap this up and we kick off fall break unofficially, I think obviously the coaching search has been the hottest topic over on the message boards. There's no better place to stay in the know and have very, very, very lively, vibrant conversations on vtscoop.com about head coaches. People obviously very, very passionate about it and what this could mean for the direction of the program overall. Hearing, just came out with the hot board of names, and that's been making its rounds, some different names and different things. You're obviously going to hear the James Franklin connection. Personally, in my opinion, here on October 15th, I don't see James Franklin coaching at Virginia Tech. I think he probably will end up coaching next year. I just don't think his staff is going to be down to this level here in Blacksburg. I think he's going to take a better job. Someone just lights up the live chat with lively and vibrant is putting it lightly. But I think he's going to be taking a better job. Now, obviously, when that news comes down, he pretty automatically jumps to 1A, the top guy available that you can go out and get. It's just how feasible is that? Can you make the moves? Can you make it appealing enough? Can you get it done? And I don't foresee it going that way. Obviously, some other names we touched on, the G5 names of an Alex Golish down at USF. Now, all these coaches with the coaching mill heating up so early here on October, so many jobs being open. Obviously, a lot of these prospective coaches have been getting asked, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And I saw Golish came out and said he hasn't chased any other job except USF. You've heard coaches say this all the time right before they make moves. I think he's going to have his pick. I don't know if I exactly foresee that one coming to play. You have a Silverfield at Memphis, another G5 coach who could look to make the jump. I know some people have talked about Bob Chesney at JMU. I think that would be way down the line. Dan Mullen has been a darling of the board, the message board, with all the boards and committees could get a little lost, but just not so sure that one really comes to fruition. There's just some different things that sounds like going on behind the scenes that he's not as high as the fans are on him, as the decision makers. And for better or for worse, it's just the way it is. Obviously, when you look at his record at Mississippi State and then Florida and what he's doing now at UNLV, there's a lot of things to like, but there's different people in the room. And now with the NDA, obviously the stopgap, there's going to be a slower leakage of different information coming out. And then I think the name that or excuse me, I'll get to Doug Bowman's favorite first, Manny Diaz, obviously at Duke. Doug Bowman, if you've been over on the message board, has been pretty heavily lobbying for the Duke head coach, obviously the former Miami head coach, former Penn State defensive coordinator, Manny Diaz, and what he brings coaching and defense, but just overall as a coach. But I think the one name that is going to be brought up a lot in this next month, and I think the Inside the Tunnel podcast, those guys just went for over an hour. I jumped in there late, but I think you're going to hear this name a lot. And obviously, with the connections to this area, Shane Beamer is very, very hot right now, name-wise, for the Virginia Tech coaching job. The schedule he's staring down right now. And I do want to preface this, that it is Cocktober, and South Carolina and can turn it around with the roster and everything. But with the way things are shaking down, with the way it sounds like boosters down there and different people are going to move accordingly, if you start to feel that pressure, are they going to be willing to match if you want to jump ship or different things? And obviously the connection, it sounds very early on right now that there are some positive links there among different head coaches. Like I said, there's a full list and a full month and different things to play out. But obviously Shane Beamer's name is going to be brought up a lot in the next month. And I think that's someone to definitely keep an eye on as this process continues to unfold. But yeah, I'll jump into some questions. Kind of a little bit of a rush show put together here right after media availability, right ahead of fall break in the bye week. So I sort of just kick back. If you have any questions, we'll get to that. And yeah, I hope everyone enjoys some football this weekend. We got Ryan saying thumbs down to Beamer, but Silverfield question mark. Yeah, like I just touched on. I think out of those G5 names, honestly, in my personal opinion, this is just straight, like I'll tell you when things are coming from someone else. This is just my personal opinion and also of what I've heard and different people I've talked to. John Summerall at Tulane would be my by far number one G5 head coaching candidate for any position if I'm in that position to make a hire. Do I think he's viable for Virginia Tech? No, I think he's going to take a bigger job, but it doesn't sound like that. Maybe the groundwork's being laid there. Behind him, I'd probably go to Alex Golish. And for the longest time, I was the highest on Alex Golish. Talked to some different people and personnel just kind of across the country, just got gauge feedback. Didn't know if he'd be exactly the best fit, but what is fit? You can always try and make the hire for fit. Obviously, he's won a lot of places he's been, so I don't know how much you put behind that. And then Silverfield, yeah, I just think you're going to have that fatigue of hiring a Memphis head coach. Obviously, went down with Fuente, but Silverfield's done an amazing job. Now, they had the NIL package, obviously, and everything going on with Memphis, but they've done an incredible job in the American. I think that Memphis versus USF game is going to be really big for both those head coaches, for the American Athletic Conference race, and for the college football playoff. So that'll be a really good one to watch. But yeah, I think Silverfield's a very valuable candidate. Who's leading in the coaching hot board? If I had to say right now, like I just signed a touch on right there, just briefly, I think Shane Beamer. He's facing down a really, really tough stretch. There's obviously the ties, and I know it's tough when he's obviously still employed by someone else, and there's a lot to shake out. But it's just the smoke around his name. It's October 15th. There's some intel behind that. There's some just feel, I feel like that's probably a name to very much watch here, along with Alex Golish, along with some different people. But that's one that's going to be pretty hot. Is it done? Just waiting for Thanksgiving weekend? Nothing is done at this point. Nothing is done at this point. A lot can play out. A lot can play out. Now, by Thanksgiving weekend, if you don't have something in place, and I've touched on it a lot, I feel like I've gotten comments and texts from different people saying like, okay, we understand how behind the eight ball we're going to be, but you're going to be in a tough spot just with the timing of everything if you don't have that head coach pretty much in place. Am I surprised there haven't been more portal entries? No, this is kind of what we expected. So 5 guys are officially in: Burgos, Dante Lovett, Christian Ellis, Michael Short, and Tucker Holloway. There's going to be a big exodus at the end of the year. A lot of that is going to depend on the coach that comes in, what scheme, how all that shakes. But no, I'm not surprised, because you jump now, and what are you going to do? You can go take visits early, but what's the advantage for a lot of these guys? You don't have film out there. So you got to go try and chase film, see if you can stand out here and stick out and try and make a way here. There's not a lot of advantage for some guys, unless obviously you're trying to preserve eligibility with 4 years in redshirt and then just go and try and get a jump start on the rest of the competition ahead of the 2-week window. But no, I'm not exactly surprised because you're still going to see a lot of guys enter in the normal window. Is there a potential coach that will unify the fan base? I don't think so. I mean, every time you're going to make a hire or something, you're going to have part of the fan base that loves it, part of the fan base that hates it, part of the fan base that's totally indifferent, part of the fan base that's so fatigued they don't really care. You're going to have so many takes flying from each different way. There's no, some people are like, this is a can't miss guy. There's never been a universally loved hire, I feel like, just because of social media and what different people are willing to say and just how different things play out. So I don't think there will be one guy that can come in and unify the fan base. I think there are some guys that have the quality and traits to do that, but not initially just off the hire in one day or one press conference is going to get everyone rallied behind them. I think there are some guys that are going to build a lot of hype behind them early. There are some guys that are going to build a lot of hype and then have one group over here maybe a little more stagnant or resistant to that. But I don't know if there's one name that can come and do that. I think there's only one guy who may be retired down at Alabama that I think any program across the country would come in and probably unify and get behind. But outside of that, you're always going to have detractors or people not feeling like the guy hired is the guy. Yeah, this is the one I laughed at earlier, lively and vibrant over on vtscoop.com. I cannot emphasize enough, and I know social media, YouTube, X, whatever, is a great spot, but I mean, you will never find some of the more witty and just honestly insane takes over on vtscoop.com. Great community over there, great people. Obviously, with the coaching search, always a good time. So can't wait to catch up on that in the car down on the ride to Tuscaloosa tomorrow. Do you think one of the reasons Franklin wouldn't beat that Institute is due to how the Pry situation played out? Yeah, I think that's a big factor that a lot of people are overlooking. Obviously, James Franklin and Brent Pry have a great relationship. He was on staff there for many years. Obviously, reached out to him for advice. I don't think Pry was done wrong. Don't get me wrong. There's not one thing where you can point to and it's like he was given a raw deal. But that does linger in the back of your head. That is definitely playing an aspect to it. I don't think that will be the deciding aspect if that's what it comes down to, but I don't think that will be the decisive thing. So you always weigh all these things into decisions, but I don't foresee James Franklin picking Virginia Tech over the available options he's going to have. Please don't say Mark Stoops is high on the board. That is a name that's been brought up. I know Message Board Genius caught wind of that today. Great for your press for VT Scoop, and obviously caused a stir on social media and just in general. Obviously what he's done at Kentucky. And people are comparing him and Shane and, the buyout situation and just everything. I don't really foresee that as one of the most serious candidates. I know it really has riled the fan base and got them feeling some type of way, but I don't see much going with that. Did you say Cocktober? Yes. Cocktober, Gamecocks. If you look at his stats in October and then November, I don't know what they're calling it, October. But anything crazy can happen there in Willie B. So what's the minimum number for Shane? He's probably going to come here. If he were to come here, it would probably be on a little bit of a raise from what he got at South Carolina, but it sounds like South Carolina, however that shakes out, so much is still to play. This is all theoretical. I feel like you can get so lost in it. The number that they've been throwing out there that they're willing to go to. It's going to be in that probably 8 to 10 range, somewhere in there. So it's going to be a pretty penny, but I wouldn't see a massive jump like you maybe see with some of these other coaches. We should have already contacted James Franklin. Would be a home run hire. Well, you can reach out. Just because you reach out early doesn't mean you're going to make a decision early. The committee just started meeting last week, so you can send out feelers to agents early on. But it's not just something where you jump in really quick. A lot of people reach out early or you touch base pretty early on, but there's so much to play out. You can't really make that call on October 15th unless you have the job waiting. And I don't think Virginia Tech was a job he was waiting on. Are you considering Kentucky a better job than VT? Hasn't the flow of resources made us much more attractive? Yeah, it's a great infusion of money, but that's going to come a lot of other places. And Virginia Tech was so far behind the eight ball. That's what, when you see we're on the cutting edge, on the bleeding edge. Yes, the budget is great. It's a big improvement, but there's going to be those incremental increases across the board, pretty much at the Power 4 level. So will it get some more at the dance floor? It still matters that patch on your chest. And Kentucky and South Carolina are both playing with that Southeastern Conference logo on their chest. And that's something Virginia Tech would change places with in a heartbeat. Because when, the realignment music stops and we're all playing musical chairs and it stops and Virginia Tech's left out, Kentucky automatically becomes a lot more attractive because they're in the party and Virginia Tech could not be. Now I'm saying that's years down the line, but that's kind of what this coaching search has resting on it. Are you going to be in the big time of college football? Or are you going to be left out? No pressure for the committee. No pressure for those 8 people or anything for the university. Burris Hall, obviously the university president and all that, because that won't affect enrollment, applications. I don't know. It's going to be very big for a lot of these institutions in the Big 12 and the ACC, and obviously the Pac-12 that's already sort of got left behind. It's going to be a really, really big time. So while Virginia Tech may be better positioned in the ACC currently with how the college football players is set up, just wait until they change that. And then the SEC gets more bids as a league and they get more favor in the strength of record and different things. So right now, yes, it's easier to win and compete maybe in the ACC. And if this budget goes through, it could be, but you have to be in that when the music stops of realignment. Just my take. Mainly in reference to Summerall will get a better job, and he's likely. I know there's a Kentucky connection there with him, but I could totally see that happening. There's a Kentucky connection there with him, obviously coach there, but Florida's coming open or alleged. Potentially Florida comes open. Potentially some other big-time SEC jobs could come open. There's still a lot to shake out. I think his name is going to be very high on a lot of those jobs. So I think Kentucky will always be there, but I think there are going to be some more high-profile jobs, and he's going to be pretty high on their list. At least that's my take on it. So was the reason for the NDA mainly because there was too much conflicting information coming out from the committee, or is there more to it than that? There's always more to it than everything with these things, but I think the biggest thing was obviously too much conflicting info. When you had Arians come out, say one thing, Eddie come out and say one thing, different things coming out from different people, and you kind of want to control the narrative, and by controlling the narrative, really putting no narrative out there until you're ready to make your call. So I think that's pretty much it. And, the way they've kind of stepped in it hasn't excited the fan base, but you got to think like the people who watch this show, the people that are kind of taking this in, or maybe that 10% that they're kind of overlooking. It's like, well, 90% when the graphic comes out that this is the coach, that's going to be the first time they even think about it since the ODU game when Pry was fired. There's only, but so many people who are so invested in it, they just go to Lane Stadium on a Saturday or whatever and keep up with it that way. So there's two different thinkings of it. If you're in that very, very 10%, intense percent, I guess, or not. And, you're just kind of waiting to let them flow the information out themselves, which, if they want to keep it in-house, they're totally right to do that. But, there is frustration among candidate pool, different people with that process and the way it was already rolled out. So we will see. For this week, though, we're going to, at least for me, I'm going to be heading down to watch the third Saturday in October down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, here on fall break. Okay, one last question. Out of the coaches mentioned, who are your top 3? Not sure I've heard you mention that. Top 3, realistically, out of the top 3 of the group, I would take Summerall. I would take, obviously, James Franklin. And I'm going to give you 5. Dan Mullen, Beamer, and Golish. I think Franklin's obviously the top of that. And obviously, I heard a lot of really great things about Summerall from different people in the industry. And then those 3 all can kind of shake. It's just what's realistic and because, you can have a top 3, but do you realistically see it in Virginia Tech's perspective for the committee? So that's sort of my take on it. But yeah, like I said, that's going to be the show for tonight. Appreciate everyone jumping in here. A little patchwork last put together, late minute show for fall break. Enjoy the bye week this weekend. Stay safe. Enjoy some college football. And we'll be right back here next Monday at 8:30. No show on Saturday, no game on Saturday. So we'll be back here Monday at 8:30 p.m. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. Please share it with a friend if you found anything insightful about Virginia Tech football and just college football in general. It's been a ton of fun getting this going. So yeah, enjoy it and have a great one. See you next time.